Hey guys, so today's video is going to be a real talk. And I'm going to talk about should you become a web designer. I've been a web designer for 14 years and I'm pretty much completely self-taught. It's how I've made my income all this time. I've worked completely online, so I think I'm in a pretty good position to tell you if or not you should become a web designer. I'm going to go over things like, is there a demand for web designers? How much does a web designer make? Where the future of web design is going and how you can get involved. So make sure you stick around to the end. So first off, let's talk about, is there a demand for web designers? Now, I actually believe there's a shortage in web designers. Now that sounds really strange. Surely you'd think there was loads of people able to make websites and you can find web designers by the dozen. Well, the reason I think there's a big shortage for web designers is there's two types of web designers. There's a type of web designer that can buy a theme off the shelf or use something like Wix.com to make a website for a client. But there's also the kind of web designer that can code and make changes. Well, if you can code and make changes to a website, you've got a huge advantage on the competition. And why? Because a lot of people don't want to learn how to code. Now that sounds crazy because you think every web designer can code, but actually a lot of people are just buying things off the shelf. And there's a lot of people who learn it from scratch who get annoyed with those kind of people because they feel like they're doing it the traditional proper way, or that these people are just using a theme off the shelf. Now if you can be one of those people who has the coding knowledge, you can use themes to your advantage. But if you've got that coding knowledge, you will have an edge on the competition. And why is there such a demand for web designers? Well, it's actually because people don't want to learn to code. People don't want to do it because it can be hard work. Coding for websites isn't particularly hard, and a lot of people can learn it, but people don't want to put the effort and don't want to put the time in. They just want to buy the off-the-shelf solution and just stick it together really quick and easily. Because people are becoming lazier as a whole and don't want to learn to code, if you're willing to put in the effort and learn this language, then you're going to have a big advantage on the competition. I think on the whole, generally people are leaning towards easier jobs where they don't have to put in the time and effort. For example, I work for myself and I've got one guy that works for me, but it was really hard to find him because he's a good quality developer. It's actually really hard, and I'm at the point where I need to find somebody else, and actually finding someone who's really good and reliable, who you can trust and rely on and do a good job that can code is actually quite difficult, and you'd be surprised how hard it is. And some of the companies I work with, I partner with marketing and design agencies to do their websites, and they also have the same issue where you can't find good quality coders, which is a really strange issue because you would think there'd be a lot of people around wanting to do this. But actually there's not a lot of people who are willing to put in the time and effort to learn the job, and they're reliable and you can trust them going forward. It's really strange, but you can use that to your advantage. And as time goes on, people are realizing they do need a solid web presence and they need a good, strong online business. And they're also realizing that speed and customization is really important on the website and they need something solid. And also I've had a lot of people that have been let down by templates and then they're coming back to me, or they've started with a template and then they come to me because they want something more solid and secure and that lasts for the future. So there's huge demand for web designers, both for freelance and for employment. So how hard is it to become a web designer? Well, in comparison to other career paths, I would say it's relatively easy. Now, when I first learned to code, it took me about 6 weeks to actually learn to code and build a website. The harder thing about web design is figuring out what looks good, how to put certain things across, and how to make designs really look great. Over time, it gets easier and easier. The more you're exposed to websites, the more you design, you'll get better and better with each one you make. It's all a learning process, but it's actually quite an easy learning process in compared to other career paths. With web design, if you come across a problem, you're always going to be able to Google, and someone is going to have a tutorial or a guide. You're always going to be able to Google for the answer and find a tutorial or guide on someone that's had that issue before, and they're going to help you solve the problem. There's also a great community around web design, so if you've got any issues, you can post in groups, you can ask forums, you can ask questions, and you can get the questions answered really easily. So I found it a great supportive network when I first started. There was plenty of people out there that were willing to help me for free, which was great. So I would say it's a relatively easy career path to follow. The harder part about web design is finding clients, managing income, how you promote yourself, how you market your services, how much to charge. But I'm going to cover all of that in upcoming videos, so make sure you stay tuned for those. The next thing you're going to need to think about is, do you need to code? Well, it's quite a controversial topic. So some people are going to say, yes, you should code and build everything from scratch. On the other end, you're going to find people who say, yes, you should use these templates and find pre-made templates, adapt them to the client's needs. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. So yes, buying templates is great, but actually having some core understanding of how a website works and how to code and build it is going to give you a much stronger advantage, and it's going to really help you out in situations where you need to make some changes to the template. So I've actually gained a lot of clients because people bought a template and they want to customize the template, and then they go into the developer and they're asking them to do it. But because they don't code, they don't know the answer. So they tell them, we can't do this, we can't do that. But anyone that was able to code would be able to make them changes quite simply. So yes, I would say overall, please learn to code. Coding is great, and it's not a particularly hard language to learn. Coding for websites is actually really easy in comparison to building software or writing apps. Web design is quite easy, and it's a visual process. And what do I mean by that? Well, as you're coding, you're going to be able to see the changes on screen, so it's really interactive and fun to learn. I actually learned on a website called lynda.com, which I'm not sure whether it's around anymore, but there's plenty plenty of websites around there like Udemy where you can learn relatively cheaply, but also there's loads of websites that will teach you to code for free, but I'll share more of those in the future. Another question you should ask yourself is, do you want to be a designer or do you want to be a developer? So what's the difference between a web developer and a web designer? And a lot of people get confused between the two. So traditionally, a web designer would design the website, they would create the nice design, and that's all they would do. They'd maybe do some front-end user experience stuff, but they would design all the pages for the website. Now, that's a web designer, a traditional web designer. Then you've got a back-end developer who would develop all the database and all the code behind the scenes. They really wouldn't get involved with the front-end stuff. They would just do the back-end and all, that's what they would focus on. So things like databases, tools, client management, all that kind of stuff. But in the middle, you have this role called front-end web developer. Now, that's probably more where I fit in that I can design a website, but I can code a website, and I can do a little bit of the more advanced stuff, but I don't tend to focus on that too much. I get people who are more experienced with it, and I utilize them for their skill set. And you'll find there's quite a difference between the type of people you'll find. So you'll have a designer that'll be really design-based, they're really creative, and then you'll have the coder who'll be very strict and straight, and they're very on the tee. So it's kind of like, this is the code, this is how the code should look. They'll be very particular on how the code should look, how things are uploaded, what's running on the site, and all that kind of stuff. So the answer is probably something in the middle. You want to be able to design websites, and you want to be able to build. That's kind of a designer and a front-end developer put into one. You can go down the coding route if that's what you want to do, and you want to be a coder, but really in this video, we're talking about web design and front-end web development. So the next thing you want to ask is, should you work for a company or should you go freelance? Now, I've always been freelance, and the reason is because I like to be my own boss. Now, I know you hear this phrase thrown around, be your own boss, but I actually really like being in control of how I live my life and what I do. It does allow me to get up and move things around when I want. If I want to work one night to have a morning off, I can do that. But you still have to be realistic, and you still have to work around client expectations. A lot of clients are going to want to be able to ring you between 9 and 5 and still have you available, but it does give me flexibility. You know, I can work from home, I can work from anywhere in the world, which is really great to be able to have, and there's not many career paths that will allow you to do that. Your other option is to work for a company. Now, working for a company is great, but it depends what kind of person you are. If you like the idea of routine and socialising with people in a work environment, then you can go off and work with someone, and actually if you want to learn, you're going to learn at a really accelerated rate because there's so many people around you, and all you're going to do is absorb that knowledge like a sponge, which is kind of like what I did, but I did it online. So I actually took all of these resources, all of these places to learn web design, what people were saying, and I kind of absorbed all that knowledge and put it into this kind of company that I've created. Which leads me nicely onto my next point, is how much do web designers make? Now, the typical starting salary for a web designer in the UK is 17,000 to 28,000, and actually the average salary is about 35,000. It depends on the level of skill, ability, and how many years you've been doing it. But obviously, if you're going to work for a company, you would move up to the roles into project management, into executive, etc., etc. And it also depends where you're based. So if you're in London or San Francisco, you're going to get way more than someone working in a local town. I've been able to earn much more than I would working for someone because I work freelance. The way I've been able to set my pricing, my recurring revenue, and managing websites, looking after websites, I've managed to make more than if I was going to work in a company. And that was one of the things when I first started. Well, I thought, well, that's a salary they're offering me. This is what I can get from freelance clients. And I thought, well, actually, if I turn this into a business, I can make way more than they're offering. I'm going to bundle all of this information together, including how much I charge, how I get new clients, how much I make inside a free Facebook group that you can join in the description down below. The idea is I want to create a community where you guys can ask questions, and if you're looking to get into web design, you can ask questions, how to grow, and I'm going to do all of that within the group. So if you're interested in doing that, click the link, or leave a comment down below and I'll reply to as many as I can. Now, web design is going in a really interesting direction because a lot of people get more involved with how conversions work, how marketing works, and the things like speed optimization are really popular. People need really quick websites, and that's kind of the direction I see web design going in the next few years. People are going to want to be able to change and add more themselves. People have been working more remotely lately, and they want more involvement with the website. They want to get in, they want to change things themselves, and they're really realizing how important a website is. So I would say the number one reason to become a web designer is the freedom it brings. You can work on your own terms, you can work where you want, when you want, and you can earn as much as you want depending on how much you're willing to work. So it's a really solid foundation and something that's really worth getting into. In all the years I've been doing it, to be honest, there's been literally no competition that's come up in a local area that's learned to code and can do it in the same format I can. Yes, there's some people that can put together templates, but they don't seem to last. It seems to be this idea they can get a template, they can make something really quick, leave the client with it, and give them no support. But there is this real opportunity to be the person that's there for the clients, knows how to code and make changes they need to, and is really reliable and can be a good partner for the company. So hopefully this video has given you some insights into web design, how the process works, and give you a clearer understanding if you should be a web designer or not. It depends on your personality, but I love being a web designer. I love being in the creative process, the build process, the planning process, and it gives me that opportunity to be involved involved in so many different businesses, and it's really interesting to see how these different businesses make money and have an inside look into how it all works. So what I want to do here is create a community where you guys can make money online and then invest it, a kind of no waffle approach that's straight to the point, which gives you real advice on how you can make money online. Like I said, I've done it for 14 years, and if I can do it, then you can do it too. And I'll see you guys in the next video.